Okay, so I woke up to a text from my film lab this morning saying that my scans are ready, which means I can finally see how these underwater photos turned out. I do not have very high hopes. Oh boy, that's the black and white roll. Oh boy. Oh, nope, nope. Oh man, there.
So to give a little context, back in October and November of 2023, Eric and I DP'd our first narrative feature film, written and directed by our friend Jay Worsley. We're going to chat about that more on Rally Caps if you're curious to hear more about it, but one of the scenes we filmed for the movie was underwater. So I thought it would be fun to bring my trusty underwater film camera to shoot with, as we also filmed for the movie. At the pool, we draped a large 20-foot by 10-foot sheet of black fabric to create a dark backdrop. And we rigged an Aperture 1200D Pro with a spotlight attachment to serve as a powerful, focused top-down light. For this underwater sequence, we were filming with a Canon R5 and RF 15 to 35mm lens inside of this enormous underwater housing. Like absolutely, like it's the size of my head. It's ridiculous. The R5 felt great to operate, but the Nikon was a little tricky.
So sick. That's so light. You want to do a couple down? One more? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Whenever you're ready. Yep. Did you? Oh, you heard it too? Yeah. It was so loud underwater, it's weird. We're just checking the pressure. We switched lenses from the 15 to 35 to a 50, so we can open up the aperture a little bit more and get some shallower depth of field stuff with all the water and bubbles. And I'm gonna finish out the rest of the black and white roll that I have in my Nikon right now and get a couple last frames. See how they turn out. I think it's gonna be maybe cool, but also potentially total garbage. So we'll find out at the end of this video when you see how they turn out. Okay, bye. They're all out of focus, completely, entirely. That one's actually in focus. That's not bad, but it's not a good photo. Dang it, I think deep down I kind of hoped that at least one of them would be salvageable, and like all of the ones above water are super cool. But man, zone focusing underwater, holding your breath, looking through a really tiny viewfinder is incredibly difficult, and I whiffed. Only in focus photo, yeah. Yeah, you got Eric's leg coming out of Baker's head in the back. So yeah, about as good as I expected it to be. Which is to say, not at all.
Okay, so now that you saw my initial reaction to seeing the scans, I want to share some thoughts about how I can improve next time I do this. Number one, shoot a higher speed film. The TRI-X film that I was using for this particular shoot was only ISO 400, and I think bumping up to a 1600 or even 3200 speed film would really give me more headroom to work with underwater, especially because my Nikon is fully automatic. I don't have control over the shutter speed or the aperture, so my shutter speed was a little slower than I would have liked it to be, and my aperture was wide open for every shot to let plenty of light in, which meant I didn't have a ton of forgiveness in the zone of focus that I was shooting in. Which, speaking of, number two, set my zone above water. The autofocus in my Nikon doesn't work underwater, which is why it actually has this dedicated zone focus tab on the top of the camera. You're supposed to switch to that when you're fully submerged underwater. And I was kind of trying to play it safe and experimenting by switching the dial while I was underwater just to try to give myself a little wiggle room, because I was kind of thrashing around down there and the subject Baker was also thrashing around, and it's difficult to shoot underwater, but I think I probably should have just stuck with one zone at a time and tried to commit to that distance and then gotten back up, gotten fresh air, and then switched to a different zone based off of what I could see above water. It's just really hard to judge depth while you're underwater, while you're wearing goggles, while you're struggling to hold as much air in your body as possible. There's just so many factors that are at play while you're shooting underwater. And I think being a little more diligent and just trying to stick to one zone as best as I can, even while I am struggling to stay put underwater, would have been a better service than trying to just, switch between a couple of different ones while I'm underwater. And that leads me into my last learning point, which is I want to practice holding my breath underwater. This is actually something I want to do a lot more in the future, shooting things underwater, whether it's moving pictures or still images. I'm really interested in working in and underwater. I think it's just really surreal and beautiful, and I want to get better on a physical level to accomplish those goals. So practicing holding my breath underwater and managing my breath control, as well as really learning how to operate under that kind of panicky feeling that can set in often when you're underwater and holding your breath. The difficulty with shooting underwater is that you're having to fight your own natural buoyancy by keeping air inside of your lungs. So learning how to release that slowly and be calm under not having a ton of oxygen inside of my body and working off of that, I think would be a huge benefit going forward, which if anyone has tips on how to do that well, please let me know in the comments. But I genuinely do want to practice that because I would like to create more things in and underneath water in the future. Regardless, I'm really happy that I tried this in the first place, and I wanted to share these results with you because I want to document my growth as a photographer, and I also want to go against the grain a little bit and share things that are not perfect, because we only really ever share the best images, the banger images on Instagram, and I think there's something to be said about the in-between little failures and mishaps that we experience along the way. So I'd like to share more of that going forward in 2024, which, speaking of, if you'd like to be along for that journey, please like and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Cheers.
Is it film?
It's film.
Film? Underwater film? Oh, that's crazy.
Oh, it's black and white though.
For a second, I was like, why'd you throw a Leica on the water?